Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, audible or Abigail.
Okay, so first is icebreaker. Icebreaker, Ano ba ang icebreaker?
6, is there a problem?
Sorry, sir, na lost in translation me. Okay, so ang activity namo this afternoon is guess the song. So emoji game siya, like mag pagawas mig emoji tapos i-guess niyo if unsa siya na song, like title sa song. Okay? Okay. Okay, first song. Okay. So, mag-guess dayon mo ay balik sa di ay. So, okay, so tagaan mo na mo og time to guess. So, kung mag-ingon na mig go, pwede na mo maka-guess tapos pag mag-end, end na pud mo. So, ang una maka-guess is correct. Very good. Okay. Ready? Yes. Ready? Start.
Like,
Okay. So, nanay naka-correct og answer, no? Si Harriet Coronel, Good For You by Olivia Rodrigo. Or, unsa man, sige go. Pero gusto na mo, nga, ay trial pa to siya, pero gusto na mo guys, magkanta mo isa ka line sa song. Okay ra? Okay, Jod. Okay ra? Dapat kanta, dapat kantahon sa akin. Naman ko ipa-prize si Kuan ani, kasi magpa-prize ani. Nai mag-prize ani, so dapat kantahon ninyo, magkanta mo isa ka line, ayaw mo makadaog. Okay, magpa-prize na si Ilaika. Okay, ready na? Sige, mag-next emoji na ta. Sige, ready? Next slide.
wait, nice.
Pwede na mag-answer, guys. Okay, ang first gonna correct sa answer is si Vassal JR, Ocean Eyes. So, sample naman dyan. One line lang. Okay, sample daw. Oo, songs ni siya tanan. Sample na daw. Na nag-request, whole song daw ang ipakanta. Dili daw makadaog hangtod dili mo kanta. Like, dili niya ma-receive ang premyo.
Ay, so dapat ko mag-sing?
Oo daw, like, bisag one line lang.
Ocean, so sakto na to.
Judge CJ, sakto ba daw to? Ocean Eyes. Yes, yes daw. Okay. Congratulations. So next emoji please. Next ano slide. Ready, go. Okay, so ang first na naka-answer is si Harriet, Old Town Road. So, singerist mo ni si Harriet.
Hello. Kanta na ko, guy.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna take my horse to the old town road. I'm gonna ride till I can't no more. I'm gonna take my horse to the old town road. I'm gonna ride till I can't no more. Yun, thank you.
Okay, very nice, CHR. Okay. Next, next slide, please. Ready, go.
Bad, bad blood. Nag-rock this guy.
Okay. Correct answer is Bad Blood. So, si Harriet Japon. Content, content din ni Harriet, guys.
Hi, guy. Unsa nga line ng kanta? Cause baby, now we got bad blood. You know it used to be bad love. So take a look what you've done. Cause baby, now we've got bad blood. Hey!
Okay. So, very nice jud ang mga kanta, no? Ako puro unta magkanta. Char, joke lang. So, next, next slide. Go. Go na siya, guys.
Night. Still
Okay,
done.
ang first no answer is si JR, Dust Till Dawn. Okay, kanta na JR. The battle between JR and Harriet, magaling ni ay.
Alayaga, magkanta na po, Otro.
Oh,
Sorry kaysa akong tingog, guys, pero ako you'll never be alone. I'll be with you from dusk till dawn. I'll be with you from dusk till dawn. Okay, mura to.
okay, congrats. Next, next slide. Go. Okay, paspasan Harriet. Ay, correct na po si Harriet. So, magkanta na po si Harriet.
Don't treat me to the things of the world. I'm not that kind of girl. Your love is what I prefer, what I deserve. He's a man that makes me, then takes me and delivers me to a destiny, to infinity and beyond.
Wow.
Okay, so na lang tayo nabilin nga four ka songs. So next slide please. Go.
Take church.
So first the answer is si JR, Take Me to Church. Jar, grabe, grabe na
So,
dyan nila.
magkanta na po lugar ko.
Oo,
Sige, go.
grabe na
Take
siya.
me to church, I worship like a dog at the shrine of your life. Let me tell you my sins so you can sharpen your knife. Offer me that. Okay, mo na to.
Okay, so last three songs. Next slide please, go.
Kung
Yeah, so ang first ay nakakorek is si JM Palubon, Call Me Maybe. So, magkanta na ka, Bon. Ay, nag-request,
Hello,
dapat daw
madungog ka?
on cam. Dapat daw on cam.
Wait, ayun sa? Ay, sorry
Dapat daw
guys.
on cam.
Hindi, mag-on cam. Mag-on cam daw, on cam.
Oo, mag-on cam daw kanina
Okay,
nag-request.
sige, di na ko. Sige. Oh, na ako sa, sorry, sorry, sir, na ako service, sir. So, ako, community, sabi, hey, I just met you, and this crazy, but here's 1 hour, so call me maybe.
Okay. So, last two songs. Next slide. Go. Okay, first na correct is si Bonbon na pod.
Ano backstage? Wait lang. Ano ko na backstage? Well, I've got a fun nice Oh, nice to meet you. Where you been? My bad guys, good bro. Together forever. So it's gonna be forever. It's gonna go down in flames. You can tell me when it's over. Oh, and I was starting thing. It's all like stars. They tell you I'm insane, but I got a round space, baby, and I'll let you know.
Okay. Last song. Next slide. Go.
yeah.
Okay. Bonbon na pod. Grabe, bay. Apas kay bay.
Want to pick up your phone, you know, sir? I got new rules, I count them more, but not one. Ano
Okay.
siya?
Thank you. Ay, naday koan, we're done steps daw, na ipahabol. So, hindi na ako ginapansin. So, that's all for our icebreaker, guys. Thank you so much.
Mm. Grabe ang kan. More like the voice battles. Sige pa dayon, Abigail.
Okay. So now let's proceed to our report. Although the focus of an IT auditor's internal control assessment has been on the general controls around system operations, over the years, internal controls are sometimes overlooked or evaded. This is, nevertheless, a significant area of IT internal control risk and weaknesses. Good afternoon, everyone. We are Group 6, and today we will report about IT networks and communication risk. Next slide, please. Our report includes network and communication securities, e-business risk, managing third-party providers, issues of increasing importance to the accounting profession, controlling and auditing networks, internet, and e-commerce. Next slide, please. So first off, let us define what is a network. Next slide. So a network is the fabric of elements that work together to support the transfer of information. A telecommunications network can include everything from the transmitters to the switches. Next slide, please. The following section presents various forms of risk that threaten networks. These include intranet risk posed by dishonest employees who have technical knowledge and position to perpetrate frauds, and internet risk that threaten both consumers and business entities. Next slide. So intranet risk. Intranets consist of small LANs and large ones that may contain thousands of individual nodes. Intranets are used to connect employees within a single building, between buildings on the same physical campus, and between geographically dispersed locations. Typical internet activities include email routing, transaction processing between business units, and linking to the outside internet. So next slide. So these are the risks related to intranet risk, the interception of network messages. The individual nodes on most intranets are connected to a shared channel across which travel user IDs, password, confidential emails, and financial data files. And number two, access to corporate databases. Intranets connected to central corporate databases increase the risk that an employee will view, corrupt, change, or copy data. Social security numbers, customer lightings, credit card information, recipes, formulas, and design specification may be downloaded and sold. Next slide. Next is the privileged employees. Information system employees within the organization are another group empowered with override privileges that may permit access to mission critical data. Next slide, please. Next, we have the internet risk. Generally, internet risk section looks at three of the more significant business risks associated with internet commerce. Next slide. IP spoofing. So IP spoofing is a form of masquerading to gain unauthorized access to a web server and or to perpetrate an unlawful act without revealing one's identity. To accomplish this, a perpetrator modifies the IP address of the originating computer to disguise his or her identity. This technique could be used to crack into corporate networks to perpetrate fraud, conduct acts of espionage, or destroy data. For example, a hacker may spoof manufacturing firm with a false sales order that appears to come from a legitimate customer. So if the spoof goes undetected, the manufacturer will incur the cost of producing and delivering a product that was never ordered. So, ana ang IP spoofing, guys. So, next slide. So, the denial of service attack. A denial of service attack is an assault on a web server to prevent it from servicing its legitimate users. So, sa denial of service attack, na siya three types: the SYN flood attack, the Smurf attack, and the distributed denial of service. So, the SYN flood attack, it is when a user establishes a connection on the internet through TCP or IP. A three-way handshake takes place. Next is the Smurf attack. A Smurf attack involves three parties, the perpetrator, the intermediary, and the victim. So later on is naay illustration about Smurf attack and the distributed denial of service. So the distributed denial of service, the distinguishing feature of the DDoS is the sheer scope of the event. The perpetrator of a DDoS DDoS attack may employ a virtual army of so-called zombie or bot computers to launch the attack. So next slide. So this is an illustration of how Smurf attack works. So naa siya'y victim site, then naa siya'y perpetrator, nodes, and intermediary network. So muna siya ang mahitabo with ay pag naay Smurf attack. Next slide. So diri pod sa part sa distributed denial of service na ay victim server and na perpetrator. Sa perpetrator is na siya mga IRC networks, then sa IRC networks is na ay mga zombie computers. So muna siya ang ginamin kaganiha nga zombie computers na mag-attack into the victim server. So next slide, please. Okay, so naapo dayon ta under sa internet risks is the risk from equipment failure. So network topologies consist of various configurations of number one, communication lines, number two, hardware components, number three, software. In addition to the subversive threats described in the previous section, network topologies are subject risk from equipment failure. Okay, next slide. So IT network securities, these controls should work together to ensure if one layer of security is breached, there will be another layer with different characteristics that either will protect the enterprise assets or assist in detecting the intrusion. So next slide. Under IT network securities, we have two, the intrusion detection systems and the virtual private network. So sa intrusion detection system, it is a specialized software tool or hardware device that monitors an IT network and system activities for malicious activities or policy violations. This system monitors the transaction traffic and other events in an IT system or network and analyze them for signs of possible incidents. While on virtual private networks, instead of requiring the enterprise offsite workers to install long-haul dedicated links or dial in long distance to the corporate modem bank, a VPN enables remote users to connect to the enterprise network by placing a local call to their internet service provider or by using existing broadband connections. So this ends my part and thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. This is the second subtopic of our report, which is the e-business risk. So, what is e-business? E-business is short for electronic business. It refers to any method of utilizing digital information and communication technologies to support or streamline business processes. It can refer to the business process of online stores or other internet-based companies. So, ang difference ng e-business sa mga normal na business is the incorporation of katong mga internet, katong mga digital information and communication technologies. So, uh, example of this are Shopee, Lazada, and many more. Next. According to Tokopedia, e-business daw, e-business daw, it refers to the use of the web, internet, intranets, extranets, or a mix of these to conduct business. E-business includes a much wider range of business processes. These business processes includes the supply chain management, electronic order processing, and customer relationship management. Next. So, what are e-business risk? So there might be some serious risk you need to assess before launching your e-commerce business. 'Di ba sa business sa normal na mga business, we have those inherent risk. And sa e-business risk pod, we have those inherent risk Same po. Ang difference lang is the incorporation of intranets and extranets have their own risk. So if i-incorporate to nimo sa imo business, then you have the you have a lot of risk. You have a lot of inherent risk. So while setting the budget, targets, and strategies of your business, never ignore the risk of e-commerce. E-commerce businesses and risk have been interconnected forever, and you need to pay heed before it gets too late. Example of these e-business risks are number one, next, is the online security breach. An e-business is vulnerable to online security breaches and cyber attacks. Some of these include phishing, website hacking, and unprotected web services. So to strengthen your online security, you must enforce additional layers of security. You can utilize you can utilize the you can add more layers and you can add more layers to your website through contact forms, sign up boxes para ma ma-strengthen ang imo online security and to avoid any form of breaches. Next is select a safe and secure e-commerce platform which uses object-oriented programming language para mas strengthen gyud ang imo ang authentication, especially daghan nag-access sa imo website, which is mga employees and other and anyone in the company. Next is client disputes and refunds. Di ba we are all familiar na pag may order ta sa Shopee, sa Lazada, pag dili kong amo, ibalik na to. Clients are now able to claim refunds on disputed orders. The majority of the time, a disagreement develops when a product does not come and the customer's account has been charged. The consumer the consumer is occasionally charged twice, and the product description does not always match the actual product. So to avoid disputes and claims, we can avoid shipment of wrong product para mas malesen ang mga disputes and mga refunds. Next is using tracking number for each order. 'Di ba pag during shipment sa mo na ay mga mawalang order, so may refund gyapon na may tabo. So we need to track those orders para mas malesen ang mga loss and maibaw na to if asa sa padulo. Next is the barcode scanners help in minimizing payment related orders. Next. Next is privacy issues. So, e-commerce businesses have to collect information about visitors and existing customers, di ba? Pag mag-search ta sa Lazada, wala ta kabalo na sa Facebook, same mo tong sa an advertisement. So, it's a form of digital marketing. So, ikuha ang mga imo data about recent purchases, recent searches para mas makuha nila ang target market. The data collected can aid in the identification of potential customers, the provision of excellent customer service, the provision of personalized communication, and the processing of financial transactions. However, in order to avoid legal issues, the data must be acquired without infringing on private rights. Diba we have a Data Privacy Act. So, as a ikaw ang nag-handle sa mga data, mga private data ng mga customer, so kailangan gid nimo mag avoid infringing their private rights and I mean kuan and obtain confidentiality. Next. So violation of intellectual property. Di ba we are all familiar with the Intellectual Property Code or the Republic Act number 8293. One of the most common security concerns to e-commerce businesses is in intellectual property theft. So, intellectual property code protects the protects the exclusive rights of scientists, inventors, artists, and other gifted citizens. So, ila to intellectual property, so that means their copyright. So, dili na pwede makuha ra nimo without payment yana. One of the most common security concerns to e-commerce businesses is intellectual property theft. In the e-commerce market, IP protection is crucial. And this includes website logos, content, taglines, items, and other pictures and icons. So dili ra ka pwede himo ng businesses na magkuha ra ka ng idea, magkuha ra ka ng mga logos and websites sa uban. Copyright and intellectual property violations can cost you a lot of money. So what's the solution for this? First is do not copy IP of any other company. Enforce a strong copyright rules. Train your employees regarding IP security. Never disclose sensitive information during live chats because they are not secured at all. Next is employ strict written protocols and enforce security policies and procedures. Next is the low SEO ranking. So what is an SEO in e-commerce? SEO is the process of making your online store visible in the search engine. So a lower SEO ranking means na dili visible ang imo online store. So that means na gamay ra yung mga customers and gamay ra imo traffic sa imo website. Among the many e-commerce dangers, your company's SEO and digital marketing might also pose a severe hazard. Google algorithms are constantly changing, and this has a significant impact on your ranking. A low SEO score implies less traffic to your website, which means less customers ang access ang website, which translates to fewer sales. So what's the solution for this? Number one is ask a professional SEO expert. Find the right keywords to promote your products, use the right tools to search for, and make an effective social media strategy. So one of the advantage of e-business is the digital marketing. Mas mapadali ra ang pagpaabot sa product sa imo target market, especially if you're on the e-business rather than that traditional business na kailangan pa mag house to house or mga flyers ingan. Next is credit Next is credit card scams. So suspicious transactions and credit card information theft are both regular e-commerce threats. A stolen credit card can be used to make an online transaction by hackers or anybody else. Your online security should be powerful enough to detect a potentially fraudulent transactions. So how to improve your online security by detecting the potentially fraudulent transactions. Next is compliant. You should be compliant and protect the data of a credit card holder and maintains a firewall kay para ma-monitor nimo ang mga authentic na data sa mga credit card holder. Next is certification, important for transactions kay para mas monitor ang ownership. They can authenticate your business ID and encrypts the data, which saves the data from being stolen. So, di ba one of the advantage pod is the the madali ra mga information, madali ra ma-store ang mga information. So that means if na kay mga information daan, ma-lessen ang potential ng mga fraudulent transactions regarding credit card scams. Next is poor customer services. Customers can be turned off by poor customer service or an unpleasant customer. It will eventually harm your business. It has numerous flaws ranging from unpleasant and unprofessional customer service representatives to out-of-date inventory management. Incorrect deliveries might also cost you money. So remember, sa e-commerce business, dili face-to-face ang pag-deliver sa service or sa mga products. So that means it is based on the product itself ang interpretation if naindot ba ang service or dili mismo sa imo pag way of marketing and way of giving the product. So what's the solution for this? Always be polite when you are talking to your customers. Focus on exceeding the expectations of your clients. Always gracefully respond to your customers' queries and apologize for your mistakes. So di ba sa Shopee natay mga client satisfaction mga rating kay para if i-rate ang delivery of service, ang product ba if nindot nga na. Next. Next is weak authentication methods. You are more vulnerable to cyber attacks if your authentication techniques are inadequate and very simple. If you just utilize an ID and password to authenticate a user, there is a danger that this information will be stolen. For your online security, you'll need powerful authentication mechanisms that can withstand attacks. So dili ra enough ang ID and password kay siyempre dali ra anyone can access the ID and password ng anyone in the company. So that's the best solution for this is that you should use two-factor multi-factor authentication methods. So siyempre na ang familiar mo to sa mga games na ano yung mga two two-factor authentication methods na i-connect sa mga email, i-connect sa mga other mga third-party devices kay para mas ma-monitor dili ra mismo password and then username na. Next is that it is the perfect way of improving your online security. It adds an extra layer of security and can ask for a verification code other than ID and passwords. So, if nakalink na itong imong mga devices, third-party devices, o mga numbers and emails, then ma-improve ang online security since it will be authentic. Next is human error. Human error might result in data loss as well as expose you to professional liability. Human mistake is responsible for around 95% of cybersecurity breaches. Unintentional errors such as deleting a file, bad password hygiene, weak access control, or email misdelivery can all pose major security threats. So, siyempre, ang nag-operate sa mga machines, sa mga computers is humans. So, dili gid malikayan ang human error. So, to lessen this human error is to create a system na para mas males ang ila human error by improving the controls, the internal controls and the security controls of the company. Next. And that would be all for my report. Thank you, everyone.
So, good afternoon, everyone. Now we're going to talk about managing third-party providers. So, in response to next slide, please. In response to consumer demand for evidence that a web-based business is trustworthy, a number of trusted third-party organizations are offering seals of assurance that businesses can display on their website home pages. So to legitimately bear the seal, the company must show that it complies with certain business practices, capabilities, and controls. So naay six ka seal granting organizations, the BBB or the Better Business Bureau, Trustee, VeriSign Incorporated, International Computer Security Association or ICSA. Next is AICPA, CICA Web Trust, and AICPA, CICA Size Trust. First, so let's now first talk to discuss BBB or Better Business Bureau. So, BBB is a non-profit organization that has been promoting ethical business practices through self-regulation since 1912. So, the BBB has extended its mission to the internet through a wholly owned subsidiary called BBB Online Inc. So, to qualify for the BBB Online Seal, an organization must first become a member of the BBB. Second is to provide information about the company's ownership, management, address, and phone number. Third is be in business for at least 1 year and promptly responding to customer complaints. And lastly is to agree to binding arbitration for unresolved disputes with customers. So the assurance BBB Online provides relates primarily to concern about business policies, ethical advertising, and consumer privacy. So BBB Online does not verify controls over transaction, processing integrity, and data security issues. Next is the Trustee. It was founded in 1996. So Trustee is a nonprofit organization dedicated to improving consumer privacy practices among internet businesses and websites. So, to qualify for the trustee seal, an organization must first is to agree to follow trustee privacy policies and disclosure standards, and also to post a privacy statement on the website page disclosing the type of of information being collected, the purpose for collecting information, and with whom it is shared. And also promptly responds to customer complaints. And lastly is to agree to site compliance reviews by trustee or an independent third party. So Trustee addresses consumer privacy concerns exclusively and provides a mechanism for posting consumer complaints against its members. So, if a member of an organization is found to be out of compliance with trustee standards, its right to display the trust seal may be revoked. Third is VeriSign Corporated. So VeriSign Inc. was established as for-profit organization in 1995. It provides assurance regarding the security of transmitted data. So the organization does not verify security of stored data or address concerns related to business policies, business processes, or privacy. So its mission is to provide digital Certificate 542 Part 3 Advanced Technologies in Accounting Information Solutions that enable trusted commerce and communication. So their product allows customers to transmit encrypted data and verify the source and destination of transmission. So VeriSign Inc. Issues three classes of certificates to individuals, businesses, and organizations. So to qualify for the class 3 certification, the individual, the business, and the organization must provide a third party confirmation of name, address, telephone number, and website domain name. So fourth one is the International Computer Security Association. So the ICSA was established its web certification program in 1996. So ICSA certification addresses data security and privacy concerns. It does not deal with concerns about business policy and business processes. So ang organizations nga nag-qualify nga i-display ning ICSA seal have undergone an extensive review of firewall security from outside hackers. So organizations must be recertified annually and undergo at least two surprise checks each year. So the fifth organization is the AICPA CICA Web Trust. So the AICPA and CICA established the Web Trust Program in 1997. So to display the AICPA-CICA Web Trust Seal, the organization undergoes an examination according to the AICPA standard for attestation engagements, number one, by a specially web certified CPA or CA. So ang examination, go-focus siya sa areas of business practices or policies, transaction integrity, and information protection. So the seal must be renewed every 90 days. And 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 um lastly is the AICPA CICA Size Trust. So in July 1999, the AICPA CICA introduced an exposure draft describing a new assurance service called Size Trust. It is designed to increase management, customer, and trading partner confidence in systems that support entire businesses or specific processes. So the assurance service involves the public accountant evaluating the system's reliability against four essential criteria: the availability, security, integrity, and maintainability. So the potential users of Size Trust are trading partners, creditors, shareholders, and others who rely on the integrity and capability of the system. So that would be all for my topic.
Okay, before we proceed, can we take a break muna? Let's have a 10-minute break. Nasa ako doon sa college sec. So, let's be back by 2:05 p.m. Okay? Sige, so Let's take a break muna.
Later.
Ma'am, diyan mas bumabalik sa mga joy. Ang wala. Wala ko, ma'am. Ito kong isend. Kinakuha naman by chapter na kung sensitive na. Wala ano. Okay. Sige, before we continue, I just wanna add uh, some things. So, nanaba mo, dire?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, gusto na ako i-emphasize tong sa part na ay intrusion and detection systems and VPN. So, na siya na important na siya nga mga parts sa um, IT networks, especially intrusion detection systems. I experienced during my audit, during my days employed in an audit firm na naagi system ang company and ang name is SAP in which pwede gud nimo ma-access ang ilahang system sa internet. So you can access it in the internet and there is a risk yun bitaw na third party kay na kanang ang line bitaw kay kung connect mo kita sa internet ato ang example atong PC atong computers will be connecting na to the database or to the servers or sa pa tawag na data banks. And then before siya mo proceed dito sa imong intended nga location. So in between na naka-line na naay pwede nga third party nga mo intrude. So it is important na na ang intrusion detection systems para nga ang data nga mo agya na nga line kay dili siya affected by third party. Kay kana na gyud ang possibility of unauthorized access. And then also na-mention kanina mga verification sa e-businesses and um, sa e-business man god it's a specialized industry e-commerce or e-business and maybe ma-discuss na sa inyo ang fourth year na subject na audit in specialized industries and there are it has its own risk yun ang e-commerce that must be studied as well kay like for example no katong you mentioned na SEO search engine optimization there's actually an audit for that na kita kung how well ang mga SEO practices or ang practices sa isa ka e-commerce company and for example na kanang mga Shopee o Lazada. So even though the scope or the focus is still on the fairness of the financial statements, but ang method na ang ways nga makakuha kag evidence is very different yun. Kay lahi man siya nga klase nga business. Okay, so and usually ang kaka-address na sa ato ang mga theoretical nga mga subjects like sa auditing theory kay more general siya sa mga uh, more on I think manufacturing or mga merchandising ng mga businesses and wala gyud nako ano ang how about sa mga specific types of company especially especially specialized industries na tawag so That's one thing dapat i-learn, no? But kato ang isa sa pinaka-issue gyud aning sa IT networks na is uh, intrusion and also privacy issues with regards kuan to to the systems or the IT networks. Okay. So before we proceed, may I ask the group um how does these internal IT risk, mga IT risk that you've mentioned kanina, how does it affect the fairness of the presentation of the financial statements? So how does this IT network risks affect the fairness of the presentation of your financial statements? Any idea from the group? Or anyone not from the group? Group 6? I-focus ko sa group 6. Ikaw mo may reporter. Yeah, any idea lang? How can these risks affect the the fairness of your financial statements? Gusto nag-report kanina. Si Drek?
Sir? Hello, hello. Yes, sir.
Yes. What's your opinion or idea about that?
Sir, can you repeat the question, sir?
Now, how does the internal IT network risks affect the fairness of the presentation of your financial statements of your company? How does this risk affect if fairly presented ang financial statements, especially about pag-audit ba? How does this affect ano, your
Sir,
audit?
regarding sa ano sir, sa for example sa online security breaches sir, so more prone to hacking sir. So there can be possibilities na the the financial statements will not be fairly presented since it can be altered by third parties na pwede maka-access sa information ng ng company.
Okay. Okay, that's correct na. Isa na ang hacking. And possible gina siya nga effect ang hacking because um, if especially na if ang mga employees kay dili sila na naka-literate, IT literate, ano yung mga adapters ng bitaw, nagamit na sila sa system, hindi na nabantayan na nahack na ilang system, nagpadayon na sila og gamit sa system. And makita gyud nato na sa mga um, workplaces nga mga tigulang nga mga kuan no, not to ano but can maglisod og especially sa ano no sa anang security. And of course, na dili man nato pwede nga ikuan. So, i-fire sila tungod kay di sila makakita sa mga security breaches. But, so, diyan lang natin i-apply no, sa atong mga internal controls, which includes the mga na-mention kanina. Okay, so let's proceed to the remaining reporters.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. Madunggan ra ko.
Yes, and pwede maka-on sa camera if
Ah.
mag-report.
Ay sir, ga log ra ba siya sir? Kinagulan man gud diri sir. Pag mag-on cam ko.
Okay. Sige, sige. Kadayan na lang.
Okay, sige. So we are now on the fourth section about the issues of increasing importance to the accounting profession. The question here is whether accountants are still relevant.
The answer is yes. Accountants are still relevant, but the profession is definitely changing. The technology advancements have enhanced the accountant's ability to interpret data effectively and efficiently. Next. So the followings are the implication of the accounting profession. We have the privacy violation. It is the misleading of private information that could compromise the user's privacy. Because business are increasingly reliant on the internet technology, privacy violations have arisen as negative factors for clients. Firms have developed assurance services for evaluating their uh, clients' privacy violation risk. As a result, the auditor or the accountant who validates the management activities and privacy policy must use extra care. Next, we have the continuous auditing. Techniques for continuous auditing must be developed to allow the auditor to review transactions at frequent interval or as they occur. To be effective, this technique will need the use of intelligent control agents or the computer programs that uses the auditor's defined criteria for searching for irregularities in the electronic transactions. So when these computer programs discover unusual events, it initially search for similar events to establish a pattern. And if katong nga program, dili siya maka-explain about sa abnormalities, it then notifies to the auditor about the alarm. Then the auditor's job will be extended. Next. We have the electronic audit trails. In an electronic data interchange environment, the computer of a client creates electronic transactions automatically, which are then transmitted through a value-added network or the VAN. Thus, audits may need to be extended to critical system for all parties involved in that transactions. So validating these transactions may involve the clients, its trading partners, and the VANs that connects them. So this might be accomplished with direct examinations of the system or by coordination between the auditor of the trading partners and the vans. Next, we have the confidentiality of data. As designs grow more open to an e-business activities, critical data becomes exposed to intrusions from both inside and outside the company. So accountants need to understand the cryptographic techniques used to protect the confidentiality of stored and transmitted data. They need to assess the quality of these encryption tools and the effectiveness of the key management procedures that the chartered accountant use. So this issue of confidentiality of data set demands of a more holistic approach to assessing the internal controls that ensure the confidentiality of the important data. Next. We have the authentication. So in traditional system, the business paper on which it has a physical forms determine the authenticity of a date of a document from a customer. Meaning, sayon na siya i-authenticate kay naaman siya physical form. However, in electronic commerce system, determining the identity of the customer is not a simple task. With no physical form to review and approve, authentication is accomplished through a digital signature and a digital certificates. So what is a digital signatures? It is a type of electronic signatures that encrypts documents with digital codes that are particularly difficult to duplicate. So to perform this assurance function, accountants must develop the skill set needed to understand these technologies and their applications. Next, we have the non-repudiation. So a non-repudiation is it ensures that no party can deny that it sent or received a message via encryptions of a digital signatures. So accountants are responsible for assessing the accuracy, the completeness, the validity of the transactions, uh, since it can lead to uncollected revenues or legal actions. So with this problem of authentication, the electronic commerce system can also use the and digital signatures and certificates to promote non-liquidation. So same lang siya sa authentication na pwede lang sila mag-use of digital signatures. Next. We have data integrity. So it's easy to tell when documents have been changed in a paper-based environment. But in a digital transmission, it is more difficult to deal with. So to assess the data integrity, accountant must become familiar with the concept of computing a document digest and the role of the digital signatures in data transmissions. And next, so for the last one, we have the access controls. So controls are needed to be in place to prevent or detect unauthorized access to an organization's information system. So an organization whose system are connected to the internet are at greater risk from the outside intruders. So accounting firms need to be expert in assessing their clients' access control. So many organizations are now conducting penetration tests to test the effectiveness of their customers' access control by imitating known hackers and crack techniques. So that is access controls is ang mga accounting firms maghimo sila og mga test na bali ila hatong awaton ang mga technique sa mga hackers and crackers para makabalo sila if ang katubang access control sa company is effective. So that would be all.
Hello, hello. Am I audible pa? So, to continue with our report, here we have the fifth subtopic, which is controlling and auditing networks, internet, and e-commerce. So, controlling networks, in this section, we will provide you with various control techniques employed to mitigate the risks reported earlier in the topic. So, first is controlling risks from subversive threats. Listed here are the controls for dealing with subversive threats. So first is a firewall. A firewall is a system that enforces access control between two networks. Firewalls provide protection against outside cyber attackers by shielding the computer or network from malicious or unnecessary network traffic. Firewalls can be used to authenticate an outside user of the network, verify their level of access authority, and then direct the user to the program, data, or service requested. Next is controlling denial of service attacks. It was discussed earlier that the different forms of denial of service attacks are the SYN flood attacks, the Smurf attacks, and distributed denial of service attacks. In the case of SYN flood and Smurf attacks, the internet hosts must embrace a policy of social responsibility by programming their firewalls to block outbound message packets that contain invalid internal IP addresses. This would prevent attackers from hiding their locations from the targeted site and would assure that no undetected attacks will could be launched. Moreover, for the DDoS attacks, investing in intrusion prevention system or IPS that employ deep packet inspection or DPI helps to determine when an attack is in progress. This DPI searches the individual packets for protocol non-compliance and employs predefined criteria to decide if a packet can proceed to its destination. Next is encryption. Encryption is the conversion of data into a secret code for storage in databases and transmission over networks. The sender uses an encryption algorithm to convert the original message into a coded equivalent, in which at the receiving end, the ciphertext is decoded back into clear text. Encryption helps protect private information, sensitive data, and can enhance the security of communication between apps and servers. So the fourth one is digital signatures. A digital signature is an electronic authentication that cannot be forged. This ensures that the message of the or document that the sender transmitted was not tampered with after the signature was applied. Basically, digital signatures function similarly to digital fingerprints, as it securely links a signer with a document in a recorded transaction. This is important as malicious parties who want to steal or manipulate data for their own gain are often present whenever precious or sensitive data is shared. So next is digital certificate. Verifying the sender's identity requires a digital certificate, which is issued by a trusted third party called a certification authority. So, a digital certificate is used in conjunction with a public key encryption system to authenticate the sender of a message. It involves establishing one's identity with formal documents, such as driver's license, notarization, and fingerprints, and proving one's ownership of the key. So by sending digital signatures, a person or sender still needs to get certified in order to ensure that when a person or sender sends the information, the receiver of that information knows that they can trust it. Next is message sequence numbering. Through message sequence numbering, a sequence number is inserted in each message, and any such attempt will become apparent at the receiving end. An instance wherein message sequence numbering is important is that an intruder in the communications channel may attempt to delete a message from a stream of messages. They may change the order of messages received or duplicate a message. Next is message transaction log. It provided that all incoming and outgoing messages, as well as attempted or failed access, should be recorded in a message transaction log. The log should record the user ID, the time of access, and the terminal location from which the access originated. So request response technique. Using request response technique, a control message from the sender and a response from the receiver are sent at periodic or synchronized intervals. The timing of the messages should follow a random pattern that will be difficult for the intruder to determine and circumvent. This is important because an intruder may successfully penetrate the system by trying different password and user ID combinations. The last one is callback devices. A callback device requires the dial-in user to enter a password and be identified. This restricts access to authorized terminals or telephone numbers and prevents an intruder masquerading as a legitimate user. This is essential since most technologies being used apply the security measure only after the criminal has connected to the network server. So the other's objectives relating to subversive threats is that to verify the security and integrity of financial transactions by determining the network controls uh, by determining that network controls can prevent and detect legal access both internally and from the internet, will render useless any data that a perpetrator successfully captures, and are sufficient to preserve the integrity and physical security of data connected to the network. To achieve the objectives, the auditor must first review the adequacy of the firewall in achieving the proper balance between control and convenience. Second is to verify the IPS with DPI is in place for organizations that are vulnerable to DDoS attacks. Third is to review the security procedures governing the administration of data encryption keys. Fourth is to verify the encryption process. This is by transmitting a test message and examining the contents and various points along the channel between the sending and receiving situations. Fifth is to review the message transaction logs. This is by verifying that all messages were received in their proper sequence. And lastly is to test the operation of the callback feature by placing an authorized call from outside the installation. So next is controlling risks from equipment failure. When we talk about equipment failure, what comes first is the line error. With line error, the bit structure of the message can be corrupted through noise on the communications lines. Examples of this noise are electric motors, atmospheric conditions, and such. So if not detected, bit structure changes to transmitted data can be catastrophic to the firm. So these are the controlling risks for equipment failure. First is the echo check. So echo check involves the receiver of the message returning the message to the sender. The sender compares the returned message with a stored copy of the original. So if there is a discrepancy between the returned message and the original, the message is retransmitted. Next is parity check. Parity check is a process that ensures accurate data transmission between nodes during communication. It incorporates an extra bit or the parity bit into the structure of a bit string when it is created or transmitted. So the author's objective relating to equipment failure is to verify the integrity of the electronic commerce transactions by determining that controls are in place to detect and correct message loss due to equipment failure. So to achieve this control objective, the author can select a sample of messages from the transaction log and examine them for garbled content caused by line noise. The author should verify that all corrupted messages were successfully retransmitted.
Hello, everyone. So, we are now on the last part of our report. This topic examines the technologies, protocols, and benefits associated with e-commerce. E-commerce, also known as electronic commerce or internet commerce, involves the electronic processing and transmission of data, and many diverse activities such as electronic buying and selling of goods and services, online delivery of digital products, electronic funds transfer, electronic trading of stocks, and direct consumer marketing. Next, please. So these are the electronic commerce technologies that have been with us for decades. The local area networks, wide area networks, and electronic data interchange. Next. The Internet employs communications technologies based on packet switching. In this technique, messages are divided into small packets for transmission. Individual packets of the same message may take different routes to their destinations. While virtual private networks or VPN is a private network within a public network. For years, common carriers have developed VPNs that are private to the client but share physical backbone lines with other users. Next. Another variant on Internet technology is the extranet. This is a password-controlled network for private users rather than the general public. Internet sites containing information intended for private consumption frequently use an extranet configuration. World Wide Web, on the other hand, is an internet facility that links user sites locally and around the world. Next slide. The internet uses three types of addresses for communications, namely email addresses, website URL addresses, and Internet Protocol or IP addresses. So presented in this slide are the general formats for each internet addresses. For the email address, a domain name is an organization's unique name combined with a top-level domain name. Next is the URL. URL is the address that defines the path to a facility or file on the web. And lastly, the IP address. Every computer node and host attached to the internet must have a unique Internet Protocol address. And for a message to be sent, the IP address of both the sending and the recipient nodes must be provided. Next. Protocols are rules and standards that control the design of hardware and software that allow users of various networks to connect and share data. Products that do not comply with prevailing protocols will have little value to prospective customers. Next slide. So what functions do protocols perform? First, they facilitate the physical connection between the network devices. They can identify themselves as legitimate network entities and initiate or terminate communication sessions using protocols. Second, protocols synchronize the transfer of data between physical devices. Third, protocols provide a basis for error checking and measuring network performance. And fourth, protocols promote compatibility among network devices. Next slide. Transfer Control Protocol slash Internet Protocol is the basic protocol that permits communication between Internet sites. TCP handles the transport of data, while IP is used for routing and addressing. On the other hand, File Transfer Protocol is used to transfer text files, programs, spreadsheets, and databases across the internet, and it is also useful for downloading entire files from the internet. Next slide. For the mail protocols, we have Simple Network Mail Protocol, Post Office Protocol, and Internet Message Access Protocol. And for the security protocols, we have Secure Sockets Layer, Private Communications Technology, Secure Electronic Transmission, and Privacy Enhanced Mail. Next slide. Network News Transfer Protocol is used to connect to Usenet groups on the internet. HTTP controls web browsers that access the web, while HTTP-NG is an enhanced version of the HTTP protocol that maintains the simplicity of HTTP while adding important features such as security and authentication. Then HTML, or the hypertext markup language, is the document format used to produce web pages. Next slide. Presented here are some potentially significant benefits that could be derived from e-commerce, such as the access to a worldwide customer and or supplier base, reductions in inventory investments and carrying costs, the rapid creation of business partnerships to fill market niches as they emerge, reductions in retail prices through lower marketing costs, reductions in procurement costs, and better customer service. Next slide. The benefits attained from electronic commerce will depend on the degree of organizational commitment to it as a business strategy. This can occur on three levels: the information level, transaction level, and distribution level. So we can see here the differences on every levels. Next slide. So perhaps the greatest potential benefit to be derived from e-commerce is the firm's ability to forge dynamic business alliances with other organizations to fill unique market niches as opportunities arise. Electronic partnering of business enterprises forms a dynamic virtual organization which can expand, contract, or shift its product line and services by simply adding or eliminating trading partners. Next. Okay, so that is the end of our report. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Thank you, Group 6. So, okay, I just want to emphasize some points dito na silang report. Dito sa part na ningan sila understand cryptographic techniques. So, I think one part na of a changing landscape na of the accounting profession is that ang isa ka focus na natin no is that we really need to understand information technology. Dili lang basic IT knowledge and skills but more advanced yun. Kaya ang ato pong mga clients and the possible nga mga maka-affect no sa fairness sa financial statements kay mag-improve po ilang ways and methods sa pwede sa fraud or maybe sa error. And so as auditors and accountants, we must also increase our knowledge of these things. And then also no, dito na mention there are no physical forms. So isa na siya ka-challenge no ang kuan kay during audit, especially mga mi og example general ledger. May general ledger sa isa ka company per account. If tagaan mi nila og physical copy kanang printed na siya signature sa ubos kanang printed nga copy. So meaning uh, the reliability of that document is assured gyud og naay responsibility ang mga nagbuhat ato. However, if tagaan mi og soft copy, so ginapa ask yun me or ginapa ngayuan yun namo sila og proof that this is indeed from the system and naay responsibility. Mo take responsibility ang naghatag ani nga true and accurate ang ilang gisan. So with regards to this, there's a challenge yun in authenticating documents that are not in physical forms. But of course, no, there's a benefit man po sa mga digital na mga forms. And sa pa ba? Also, nakuan ko na itong line error na possible di ay no nga while communicating through the internet or maybe through a LAN or WAN or EDI. So those are mga usually ginagamit yun na siya within an organization ng LAN, WAN o EDI. So those are common mga systems karon and there's a possibility of line error as mentioned kanina na if matandog especially mga physical wires so na even the internet no uses physical wires fiber wires para connect to the other parts of the world and if dili secure especially sa mga gagmay lang nga mga area networks dili secure ang line connection then pwede nga ma-alter ang mga data nga naa sa while transmitting and may cause system failures. So most of all na pinaka-importante is that ma-prevent gid ni nga mga errors kani nga mga fraud sa mga problems in using IT networks by using controls. So my question for group 6, there were a lot of controls mentioned kanina, but as you all know, resources in an organization are limited. So how do you choose which control should be adopted? What are your general principles? Anyone from the group? Okay, wala yung mga volunteer. Then, itong ano lang, nag-discuss sa controls. CJ.
Ito sir, like principles, sir.
Yeah, like, how do you choose?
One goal like one, like cause and benefit analysis na pag pili sir kung ang say mas better pero however ang say mas better and also ang say mas less costly na control na i-apply.
Okay, so, which is better? Okay. Okay, thank you, CJ. So, that's right, no? In a company, man, good, you can't really have all the controls. You can't, as as ideal as it is na naata ng klase sa controls, you have limited resources. Especially if gamay ra ka ng company, no, and each control really needs resources, cost resources yun on a business or an entity's part. So you need to to do siguro no cost benefit analysis yun if um, using or having that control will have more benefit than the cost. Okay, so thank you Group 6 now for that presentation. So please submit your PowerPoint dito sa sa classwork, aning reporting. So pwede ang leader lang ang mag-submit sa presentation and also your short quiz para ma-prepare na ako og form.
It's
Okay, so tomorrow group 2 sa 10 to 11:30. Wala may wala may class tanan ana nga time, 10 to 11:30. Wala ra may kuan ana conflict ng class schedule. So group 2 will present. And then group 3 dayon sa 1 to 2:30. Okay, according sa schedule there, 10 to 11:30 o 1 to 2:30 atong lab schedule. So wala ra may conflict ana nga time, 10 to 11:30 and 1 to 2:30 kay Thursday man good. Kay possible nga wala lang. Okay. Sige, so group 2 and group 3. Sige. So I think that's it for today class. Thank you for joining us today and okay. We're dismissed na.
Thank you, sir. Bye po. Thank you, reporters.
Okay.
Thank you, reporters. Bye po, sir. Bye, guys.
Sir, gipirmahan lagi sir. Si Peo.